We're back, baby. We are so back. Welcome back, everyone. For this video, we're going to be talking about the obscure conspiracy iceberg, where in each video, we are going to be covering a layer for each one of them. And, hopefully you guys are excited for this. I am definitely excited for this. So without any further ado, let's get right into the video. And before we start, I just kind of want to give a little note for you guys that some of these may not classify as conspiracies, but more as myths or even legends. So just want to preface that before we kind of move on. Area 6. Area 6 is a government testing facility that has held 4 nuclear tests during its time since the 1950s, with it even having a hangar near a runway, and that not much is known about it, but that it has been used for secret defense research and development work. Darwin Morgan, a spokesman for the National Nuclear Security Administration, has stated before that Area 6 has been used by the Defense and Homeland Security Administrations in the test of UAV sensors. So in terms of a conspiracy, there wasn't really much. When I was obviously doing research about it, trying to look for whatever I could find, the most that I could find was probably 1 or 2 articles about it and the Wikipedia page. So in terms of a conspiracy, there really wasn't much. But that my theory is that they are probably hiding the secret to making the perfect sandwich. So there you go. Havana Syndrome. Havana Syndrome, also known as anomalous health incident, is a disputed medical condition reported by U.S. diplomats, intelligence, and even military officials who are stationed overseas, where the affected individuals would report having acute symptoms such as a perceived localized sound, such as chirping, clicking, screeching, or even a piercing noise, with chronic symptoms following soon afterwards, and that they would also have cognitive problems, issues with balance, insomnia, and even headaches. And with 2/3 experiencing visual disturbances such as blurred vision or sensitivity to light, that more than half would experience an intense pressure or vibration in the head, including ear pain, diffuse head pains, and issues with forgetfulness and poor concentration. Tetanus and hearing loss would affect 1/3 of the cases, with dizziness or unsteadiness affecting 1/4, and that neurological tests showed abnormalities. Again, these symptoms could last for months or even longer. The first cases were reported by US and Canadian embassy staff members in Havana, Cuba, with these cases starting around 2016 to around 2017, with them reporting that they started to hear a strange grating noise coming from a specific direction, or that some experienced an intense pressure or vibration, and that some others would also report experiencing what it felt like was driving through a car with the windows rolled down, with that lasting about 20 seconds to about half an hour, and that it would only happen when they were at home or in their hotel rooms, and that anyone else that was near the vicinity would not experience the same symptoms. Starting in 2016 to 2021, US intelligence and military officials and their families would report having these symptoms overseas, such as in China, India, Europe, Hanoi, and even DC. Now, as to the cause of Havana Syndrome, we still don't really know. It is still highly debated, with even US representatives at one point stating that it might be a foreign actor using weapons against us, and that they would use weapons such as ultrasound or even microwave weapons, which could make sense if you look into the effects of high and low frequencies over a long period of time used on a person, with high frequency sounds causing hearing loss over long periods of time, not to mention high blood pressure, and it would also contribute to cardiovascular disease. And with low frequency sounds causing vibrations in the body, such as feeling of discomfort or even nausea, with some studies suggesting that it would even affect sleep quality, along with other negative health effects. And that at one point the US expressed suspicions that it might be the Russian military as the culprits to these attacks. So yeah, it's not impossible for anyone to kind of create a weapon that would cause these effects. I think it probably would be realistic, but obviously we don't know. And in 2022, a bunch of studies came out reporting that they were not able to find any kind of causation to Havana Syndrome, with them even citing in some of the reports that it might be psychogenic factors, which basically means mass hysteria, environmental factors, or even pre-existing medical conditions as the causes to these effects. And in January of 2022, the CIA issued an interim assessment, which is basically just like a time frame for the investigation, where they then backtracked their claim, suggesting that any foreign involvement wasn't there in 976 out of the 1,000 of the cases that they reviewed. And again in March 2023, 7 US agencies completed a review around the cases revolving around Havana Syndrome, with them even releasing an unclassified report that again, no adversary was involved in this. And although government agencies try to dismiss that Havana Syndrome is a real thing, there are still some cases where people are still struggling with lasting health effects, with even one diplomat needing hearing aids. And this kind of resulted in Canadian staff members suing the Canadian government for failing to protect them. And even though the Canadian government initially tried to dismiss the suit, in the court filings they did acknowledge that some of the plaintiffs had concussion-like symptoms, but they didn't know the cause of it, and that they would continue to investigate to try to find what exactly was the cause of their symptoms. Now, in terms of conspiracy, I can kind of get behind this one. It's not so far-fetched because, you know, the effects of high and low frequency sounds kind of does make sense. It might be possible to make a weapon that does exactly that. I mean, who knows? There probably is one. I just haven't looked it up. In terms of who's causing it, my best guess is that it's your own government causing it. It's probably the US testing it on US people, Canadian using on their own people, just to test it out. And that's kind of the reason why they backtracked. You know, one agency found out that, you know, they're testing weaponry, and, you know, they're like, oh no, never mind, you know, forget about it. But regardless, that's my best theory into this whole idea that Havana Syndrome is caused by, you know, a bunch of stuff. There could be external factors, but I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. I'm just, you know, saying stuff into the wind. So regardless, on to the next one. Gang stalking. Gang stalking or group stalking is the belief that a person is being followed by a large group of people wanting to cause them harm, that communities are formed as a byproduct of this who share the same feeling that they are also being stalked, and that those behind it use methods such as electronic harassment, psychotronic weapons, energy-directed weapons, cyber stalking, hypnotic suggestion through the use of remotely accessed electronic devices, among other techniques. Now, there are some cases where a person could actually be stalked by an individual or individuals. It's not impossible. There are some situations which I'll probably talk about a little bit later, but generally with this kind of cases and these kinds of people, they are generally suffering from something called persecution mania or persecutory delusion, which is the belief that there is going to be harm coming from them from someone with no actual evidence to back it up. Australia and the UK did a study of 128 self-claimed victims of gang stalking, with all of them being deemed as delusional compared to 5 victims of individual stalking. Psychotic depression. Let me clean my glasses. Because they're dirty. My glasses are dirty. My glasses are dirty and they need to be cleaned. Multiple things could link us to why a person would have persecution mania, such as genetics, environmental factors, along with things even in mental health, such as schizophrenia, manic episodes of bipolar disorder, and even psychotic depression. Studies have also assessed that people with schizophrenia and persecution mania have higher levels of childhood emotional abuse, with no links to trauma, physical abuse, neglect, and even SA, and that they tend to deal with their problems with worry instead of actually facing it, and that causes the thing that we now know as, you know, persecution mania. Now, this must suck as a way of actually living, having to go day by day, you know, thinking that someone's out to get you, creating these scenarios in your head, believing that, you know, someone's out to get you. Compared to me, on the other hand, where I create scenarios in my head, whether I'm at work or I'm at, like, you know, somewhere like Walmart, where I'm always thinking, you know, oh, what if, you know, someone was to chase me, or what if there's like a situation where I need to escape? And I create these scenarios in my head, and the fact that I do this without having any mental disorder compared to people who actually do struggle with it, it's like, what the fuck? But, you know, obviously I don't have any mental health disorder. Targeted advertisement. Now, we all know what targeted advertisement is, specifically on the online sphere, where a product is promoted specifically based on certain criteria such as race, sex, age, economic status, among a few other criterias. And the way they do it is by tracking which websites you go to using your IP address, along with agencies that also collect your information. Google, Meta, and YouTube are some of the more commonly used social media platforms that use this form of advertisement, where they will kind of gather the information so that they can promote a product or service based on their users' likes, their history, their geographical locations, to give you something a little bit more personalized. Personalized power. This form of advertisement has definitely grown throughout the years, especially with the development of the smartphone, where it would gather more information so it could adapt even more quicker throughout the things that happen throughout the day. Now, in terms of a conspiracy theory, this one actually turned out to be very true. Everyone knows that you get targeted advertisements. You don't really need to say much. You just say something, and then the microphone will pick it up, and then a few days later, they'll start, you know, displaying certain things that you might want. That happened to me not that long ago, where I was talking with a friend and I was mentioning getting a new car, and suddenly a few days later I started getting ads for brands that I didn't even know of. I got some for Toyota, Honda, Lexus, Infiniti, Mazda, among a few others. But for the ones who are giving me ads, just know that the only brand that I'm gonna go with is the Lexus. That is the love of my life right now. That's the one that I want. So if you want to present something, present that to me, for the love of God. Do better. Don't give me some trashy Chinese cars. So all I gotta say to that is nice try, Zuckerberg. Anyways, moving on. Bigfoot in San Andreas. Bigfoot in San Andreas would be one of the more well-known myths and legends throughout gaming history, with it probably even pushing more myths and legends, with them even revolving around other games. It was stated that this started on the discoverance of the hot coffee mod, and that while everything was happening, gamers and internet forums started talking about a creature that was hiding in the dark forest of the San Andreas countryside. This would become huge news as gamers would go into the game trying to get, videos or screenshots depicting Bigfoot, which would fill the web. And although time has passed, no one was able to actually confirm if Bigfoot was actually in the game. Now, I definitely remember these. I remember a lot of YouTube videos about myths and legends when it revolved around San Andreas. I believe Manhunt also, and even Saints Row. With the ones that I could recall, I remember for GTA, there was that one, I believe he was a photographer that would take pictures and then he would end up like drowning in the water because they did something with the programming, but everyone made their own little theory about it. There was also the one in Saints Row 2 where there was that dead body in the underground layer of the game. I'll probably look for the video somewhere, but it's like really old, so hopefully someone out there remembers what I'm talking about. But those are the ones that I remember. They were really fun back then. It kind of reminded me of like ghost hunting videos, but for obviously video games. So yeah, those were definitely good times. Klaus Schwab. Now, while researching his name, I was initially confused because I didn't really find anything in terms of a conspiracy theory until I saw that he was the founder of the World Economic Forum, and then that kind of started to make sense because I have heard of that before. So before I kind of talk about the conspiracy, I'm going to be talking about what exactly the World Economic Forum is and what it does exactly. So before we delve into the conspiracy theory, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what exactly the World Economic Forum is, so that way you have a general idea of what it's about. I need a drink. The World Economic Forum is an international advocacy non-governmental organization, try saying that 3 times, and also a think tank, which just translates to a research institute, where their main goal is improving the world through economy, politics, and even science, and they have about 1,000 multinational company members. So the conspiracy behind the World Economic Forum is that they basically made an economic recovery plan known as the Great Reset Initiative, which was in response to the COVID pandemic. And that conspiracy theorists claimed that COVID was created by a secret group in order to take control of the world economy, and that the lockdowns were done on purpose in order to basically cause economic meltdown, or that the global elites were trying to abolish privatized property, and that they would try to take control of people through the form of vaccines. And BBC made a series debunking the Great Reset because there was no evidence to back up the claims, with multiple occasions of evidence popping up, such as a chain email from a non-existent committee member of the Liberal Party of Canada, where they supposedly leaked Canada's secret COVID global reset plan that was posted on the QAnon dedicated research board on 8chan. And that there was also like a video of Justin Trudeau kind of giving points in his speech that people kind of picked up as, him saying that there actually was, a great reset happening. Now, I just want to say that I have recorded this before and I got extremely mad. So I kind of want to give out my points in a more calm, collected way when I kind of talk about this, because it does need to be said for people who like to delve into conspiracy theories. Specifically talking about like these, and then one that I'm going to talk about later. So I'm going to start out with the point and just give an example. So for those that are so extremely into these kind of conspiracy theories, I just want to say, how hard is it to just kind of go over here, type out, Great Reset Initiative, and kind of just look through it, or buy the book or whatever. There is a book. Just look through it, see what it's about, and take it for what it is, and not create this whole scenario in your head where there's someone out to get you, or there's something bigger happening in the world that kind of gives you this doomsday mentality. Like, what good does it do to you? Because there is a point where conspiracies don't become fun anymore because you take it to such an extreme level. Like, if you're doing this in a playful manner, I can understand it. I mean, Flat Earth, to me, is more fun because there's no harm coming from it. Another thing that I want to say is, like, how hard is it to just do research? I mean, in my old recording, I didn't even look into the Global Reset Initiative because I had a basic understanding of it just from what it was. I mean, anyone with like basic understanding of how the world works would know that they were probably talking about, ways to improve the economy through certain things and like stuff like that. Like, I don't know, just think of like the bare minimum. And I actually took the time to look into the book that Klaus Schwab wrote. I think I'm like 2 hours into like a 5-hour audiobook. And in it, it's like nothing new. It's not new information. It talks about like AI and how it's being implemented more and how it's going to become more of a thing. There's other talking points that they say about improving the economy, how automation is going to be fast forwarding in order to kind of cover the jobs that people were not working because they couldn't go to the locations of work, and ways to kind of improve the economy through having people kind of control how much they buy. And they're specifically talking about, people with more wealth, on how to control their spending and not like basically leave the poor people out of the race, to get wealth. That's basically all it was. It wasn't like some kind of like extreme plan that was out to get you. Like when you really look into it, it's like it's really nothing. Like there was nothing to worry about. And like I don't know, I don't know, like I remember going to school and I remember my teachers always telling me to do your own research, never take what anyone says at face value. And I know for sure that Alex Jones, I believe, has definitely talked about this and has like this whole kind of conspiracy and kind of pushes it towards his audience. And all I gotta say is like, why do you believe whatever he says and not look into it yourself? Take it at face value. It's just like, take a step back if you don't believe anything, gather the information, and then make the decision on your own once you have the information. I did it. I made the conclusion that it's like a nothing burger. It's obviously like anyone with a basic education level, like I wouldn't say I'm like extremely educated. I would say I'm like fairly educated. I'm average at most. And even I could understand what it was talking about. Like the fact that people go to that extreme, they either have mental illness, they have increased fear of, something that they don't have an understanding of. So they kind of take it to extremes because they're afraid of what can come from it. There's probably other reasons why I just can't think of it, because this is all off the cuff. This is all with what I was thinking of. And I just want to say to the conspiracy theories, what about the theories makes it fun for you? Or even if it's not fun, what do you get out of it? Do you feel good about yourself when you kind of give a doomsday scenario to people and start like gathering with other people that have the same like-mindedness as you do? Does it make you feel better, more connected, or whatever? If that's the case, find other groups of people. There are so many better people that you could be associated with that don't take it to such an extreme, because these kinds of conspiracy theories take it to a horrible extreme, because there could be a point where you start taking action because you have this belief that you kind of marinate in, and you kind of start to decide to take action because you feel like no one's doing anything about it and you know something that they don't. Like, what exactly about it does it make you feel good about yourself? Like the fact that you know something that we don't, and the fact that you know the truth and that people won't accept the truth, and they're all sheep, they're all followers of this whole thing, that there's higher ups trying to go against you, like where you have like this kind of hero complex where you think that because you think you know so much, you're the hero, you're the one that's trying to save everyone from themselves. Like, what about it makes you feel good about yourself? Like, should I start feeling good about myself with the fact that I can get $1 off the McDonald's menu app, and there's like a boomer somewhere out there that doesn't know how to use the app? Should I start feeling good about myself because I know that? Or the fact that I can get like a double down dog for a limited time only at participating KFCs? Like, should I start feeling good about myself? And the point that I'm trying to make with that is, I'll give an example. Me and my girlfriend were talking, and we were talking about the eclipse that happened not too long ago as a conversation that kind of revolved around exactly what I mentioned before. And a mother ended up killing her infant child because she had this kind of same kind of mentality where they kind of had this belief that something was going to happen during the eclipse, and as a result they killed their child. There was also reports of another mother, I believe, killing her husband and 2 other children that were hers. So it's like, that's the point that I'm trying to make. There's a point where the conspiracy theory will take you down a path to where you start making an extreme decision because you have this mentality that you can't get out of, and you kind of start building this whole like story in your head, and you decide to take action. That's the point that I'm trying to make. You need to know when a theory is too much, or that you're kind of delving into it too much. You are setting up this whole thing that you're going to end up regretting for the rest of your life because you believed in it so much, and people are like supporting you in the belief that you kind of are doing the right thing. So please, if not for me, do it for yourself. Realize that you're in too deep. Take a moment, take a step back, reevaluate what you're doing, and then take action from there. If you still want to continue it, just be careful. For the love of God, be careful. Don't be like the mother that ended up killing those children. For the love of God, please don't be like that. So just please take care, take it easy. Go with conspiracies with the idea of having fun. Have fun, okay? Because it's the same result as with people believing that, Jewish people are secretly running the world, when I honestly think that they're just regular people. They are not doing anything to anyone. They probably don't even know what's happening with the upper echelons of the world. So please, for the love of God, if you are in that deep, just be aware. That's all I'm asking. Just be aware. Okay, now let's keep going. Now that we talked about all the serious stuff, let's go on. Polybius. Polybius is a fictitious 1981 arcade game based on an urban legend, and as the legend goes, it was said that it was created by the government as a form of a psychology experiment, that anyone that would play the game would get intense psychoactive and addictive effects from it. So there would be a bunch of people waiting in line around it just to try to play the game, and as a result, it would also kind of cause people to fight against each other just to try to see who would play next. And there was also a story of 2 people disappearing after the fact. And anyone that would play the game would suffer a series of side effects such as seizures, amnesia, insomnia, night terrors, and even hallucinations. It was said that the few arcade machines that were publicly available would be visited periodically by men in black, who would data mine the machines in order to analyze their effects, and that it would eventually disappear from the arcade market about 1 month after its release. Now, it's believed that this game grew out of a mixture of influences, such as 2 players falling ill on the same day in the same arcade in Portland, Oregon, where one collapsed after having a migraine after playing Tempest, and the other having stomach problems after playing Asteroids for 28 hours straight, trying to beat a world record. And that just 10 days later, the FBI would raid multiple arcades in the area, as the owners were suspected of using the machines for gambling, and that during this time the agents would monitor the machines in order for tampering or even keeping track of the high scores days before the raid. Funny enough, there's a movie named The Last Starfighter, in which the basic idea of the plot is that aliens use arcade machines in order to try to find pilots who are worthy enough to fight in their army. So pretty close to this conspiracy theory. And although there's no evidence of this game actually existing, it has inspired other games. One specifically of the same name, created by Lamasoft, that was basically a shoot 'em up. Gulf War Syndrome. Gulf War Syndrome is a chronic and multi-symptomatic disorder affecting veterans who served in both sides of the Gulf War, where a wide range of acute and chronic symptoms such as fatigue, muscle pains, cognitive issues, insomnia, rashes, and even diarrhea, with some of those symptoms seeming to be unexplainable, and that approximately 250,000 of the almost 700,000 US war veterans that served in the Gulf War enduring many of these symptoms, with their health being even worse than non-deployed veterans, with them also having to deal with chronic diseases, functional impairments, and repeated visits to the hospital, where they were treated with skepticism and sent to psychiatrics for mental health treatment. And that in 2017, a government accountability office found that the VA denied 83% of the 102,000 claims that were filed for Gulf War Syndrome from 1994 to 2015. This caused some veterans to allege that there was a conspiracy to cover up the toxic chemical exposure and to deny that Gulf War Syndrome existed, which, once you looked it up, turned out to be true, as multiple federal agencies dismissed the idea that troops got exposed to toxic chemicals and aligned it more to either stress or mental health problems. And that in 2013, it was confirmed when a whistleblower and epidemiologist Steve Coughlin came forward saying that the department tried to bury their findings in order not to link it with military service, in order to deny vets their healthcare and benefits. With an email confirming those findings, as the email was sent by former Undersecretary of Benefits Allison Hickey, who expressed concerns of people calling multi-symptomatic illness Gulf War illness, as to not link it to the war, so that legislation wouldn't be made to compensate the veterans who served in the Gulf. Now, it doesn't need to be said, but I'm brave enough to say it, but what a bitch. And as of now, we know that the primary cause for Gulf War syndrome was a sublethal amount of organophosphates, particularly CERN, which is an extremely toxic organophosphate that is both colorless, odorless, among others like cyclocerin from oil well fires. Also, it was said that Gulf War syndrome was not a result of combat or any other stressors, as veterans who served in the war had lower rates of PTSD than other vets in other wars. As of now, thankfully, a bill has been passed by President Biden in 2022, known as the Remember Our Pact Act of 2022, in which Gulf War syndrome must be recognized and veterans now can receive their healthcare and benefits. Now, I'm not super patriotic, but thank God for the troops getting what they rightfully deserve. I think it must have really sucked for the longest time having to deal with so many chronic symptoms and not getting their benefits, with being scum like Allison Hickey, who would deny it just because of greed and not wanting to pay veterans what they are owed. And again, I'm not super patriotic, but I feel like if you're willing to, sign up, go into war, stuff like that, I think you should get your benefits. You should be taken care of, regardless, because it takes a lot to go into the military. I mean, I wouldn't do it, so it takes a certain kind of person to do it willingly, to fight in wars, regardless if the war is right or not. The fact that they get in there and they're fighting the wars of the rich and powerful. Sewer alligators. Sewer alligators is the urban legend that revolves around the idea of alligators living in the sewers, typically in places where they wouldn't really be, such as New York or even Paris, with stories dating back into the late 1920s to the early 1930s, but of course, those are just legends. Now, in terms of stories of alligators being in the sewers, there have been occasions where alligators have been in there, but they're typically in locations where they actually reside in. I'm looking at you, Florida. It was even reported by the New York Times that the city would save about 100 alligators per year, but that they were typically found in homes and kept as illegal pets, but that they would also be kept above ground and not in the sewers. Now, of course, there might be cases where they either escape from the zoo or from homes, but they would only live for a short time in the sewers due to the low temperatures and the human doo-doo. And obviously, the maintenance crew probably would have said something if they found an alligator, in their place of work. Quest? There's Quest in Discord now? What? What the Shigma? Now, the story as it was told was that multiple souvenir shops would sell live baby alligators in tanks as souvenirs, and that tourists coming from New York would buy them to keep them as pets, that they would keep feeding them until they would grow a little bit too big, and then they would have no choice but to flush them down the toilet, where they would kind of live off scrap, eat rats, and even reproduce to the point where they would keep growing. Now, in terms of an urban legend or a conspiracy, I think this one was extremely fun. I actually really like this one. It's a good thing that, I don't have to go into the sewers in fear of losing an arm, but now I know that I'm just not going to go in there just because it stinks. It most likely really stinks. CERN. The European Organization for Nuclear Research, also known as CERN, is an intergovernmental organization that operates the largest particle physics laboratory in the world, where it was established in 1954, and it's stationed in Meyrin, western suburbs of Geneva, near the France-Switzerland border, where it's comprised of 23 member states. Boom, 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 boom. CERN's main goal is to provide the particle accelerator and other infrastructure for high energy physics research, and they also do it for radiotherapy, ion implantation, among other cool stuff. CERN mainly uses it for particle physics, which is the study of fundamental particles and the forces that constitute matter and radiation. And there's just not one conspiracy theory behind CERN, there's multiple, with them having fears of the creation of black holes, others to portals to different dimensions, with them even claiming that they're causing earthquakes, with even some of the more crazier ones saying that they're sabotaging time travel, and others saying that they're opening portals to basically hell. Now, before I go on, CERN did admit in trying to attempt to create a black hole, but before you get a little too crazy, let me explain exactly what they meant. So, they said that if they could create a black hole at a certain energy level that was safe, they would be able to study it to try to find if they would be able to detect any universe within itself. Basically meaning like a universe in 4D. Now, before I go on, I'm going to explain exactly what they probably meant by 4D. So just stay with me. So we have the paper and I'm going to explain the dimensions, okay? And so here are my masterful drawings to conceptualize what I mean by the different dimensions. And hopefully I don't stutter. If I do, I'm going to keep going anyways. So please excuse me. So, as we conceptualize This would be 1D where there is length. It would be a plane. That's all we can conceptualize. There's nothing beyond that. It would basically be if the paper was flat. That's basically it. Now 2D is what you can see right now, where there would be space. So the paper would be a perfect example of 2D. Now when we go to 3D, that would be something that we can also conceptualize. So if you want to grab like a bottle of water, your phone, you start turning it around, you can conceptualize the idea of different dimensions within that. So for this, it'd be length, this length times width times height. So we basically understand those. This one is a little more trickier, so I'll try to explain the best as I can. So generally you would see, a box within a box, or sometimes if you looked up, videos of it, it would be in a constant motion. So I'll explain it in time terms, so that way you can kind of get exactly what they talk about when they talk about 4 dimensions. So to explain it in terms of time, think of it as in the present and in the future and everything in the past. So it would basically just be a constant motion of, let's say, from point A to point B. So let's say that the box started over here and it would continuously move this way. That would be the basic concept of 4D. So it would be a box. Now, that's the general idea. Hopefully you can conceptualize that. I'm not the best at explaining it. I'm not like a scientist or anything, but that's generally the gist of, probably there would be a better image. Let me look it up, see if I can find you a better image. And so right here we have 4D, 2 images of 4D, where it would basically, a box within a box. Or if you look at it here, it probably makes a little more sense. And if you think of it in the form of time, it starts to make a little more sense. So think of it as this point here being a moment in the universe, and that it would be in a continuous motion within itself. So think of every moment in the universe being one of the shapes. So it would be continuous, it would be moving within itself, and that every single dimension that would be created within the line would be an exact moment in the universe. So right over here, you can kind of conceptualize exactly what I mean. It would be in a continuous motion. It's constantly moving. I believe that in 5D, they have the conception or the hypothesis that 5D is basically every possibility in every universe. So like, let's say whatever you do now, you can do a different thing, or if you were a different person, like the infinite possibilities. That's basically 5D. 4D is basically the moments that exist, within our universe. So hopefully I explained that as best as I can. I mean, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a physics person, so hopefully you get the general idea. Hopefully I did a good job. Hope Neil Eat the Ass Tyson approves of, me explaining it. I probably did not do a good job, but I did my best. So another way to easily conceptualize of what I mean is when there's like the error message that you get from Windows, and there's like that continuous error message, displaying itself. Think of that as a continuous moment of the universe. Just so like that would be a moment, that would be a moment, that would be a moment, that would be a moment. Like that's basically the whole idea, at least from how I could understand it. And around August of 2016, a video went viral claiming to be found footage of people wearing black cloaks doing like a human sacrifice in front of a Shiva statue in the CERN's facility. But that turned out to be a prank in order to make fun of the people who kind of believed all these crazy, wacky theories. So a little bit off topic, there is some people that believe that angels come from a different dimension. So it's not out of the scope of reality to those types of people to think that, CERN is creating a portal to hell, with whatever information they have. Because they kind of connect the dots, and then they're just like, okay, that kind of correlates to what they believe. So just a little fun thing that I kind of noticed. So I want to look at some of the tweets that people were talking about CERNs back in 2022, talking about them activating the particle collider. So, come with me so we can have a little fun and look at some of these messages. All right, here's the first tweet. So nobody else is concerned that the CERN collider will be turning on July 5th and opening up a portal and letting some dark side shit come through. Now, that's the first one. July 5th, CERN. It's time to get right with God and protect your energy. #CERN.
Damn.
All right, let's look at number 3. On July 5th, we will be feeling a sudden shift in the universe. It will feel like we have changed timelines. Do your research about CERN. If you think things have been weird, it's about to feel even weirder. Protect your energy at all costs from negative shit. Meditate. God, I think this one was the smartest one yet. Jesus Christ. Anticipating the activation of CERN got me feeling some type of way. The f gives y'all the right to be opening up portals and shit? Isn't 2020 crazy enough? Sheesh. And just to show you what I exactly think of these types of people, I'm going to show you the names that I named for every one of these images. So right there you got moron 1, moron 2, moron 3, and moron 4. Funny enough, there's actually someone in my personal life that I knew who actually believed in this stuff, who would mention CERNs, who would mention, you know, opening up portals to hell. And the only thing I got to say to him and everyone else that believed in this stuff, how is that going out for you? How must you feel right now? Because they said nothing after the date. So they must feel real stupid, the fact that they believed in all that other shit, and they probably, you know, either dismissed it or probably blamed something else, you know, try not to take the blame that, you know, they believed in something that was completely dumb. I don't know. Now, before we end it off, I kind of want to finish it on a pretty cool note. I do remember not that long ago that they used the particle collider and they were able to produce an excess amount of energy. It wasn't that much, but it was something, and that's pretty cool. So we reached the end of the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. This one was extremely long. It was exactly like the Vlad video where there was a lot of remembering, a lot of research, a lot of that kind of stuff, and we're at the first layer, so each layer is probably going to get more difficult from here, but I'm here for it. So hopefully you guys are here, you know, buckled up and ready for the next one. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Until next time, y'all take care. Okay, see you guys.